Hey, this is Dan Simon, and you're listening to Mike Delivers with Mike Biseglia. I'm Mike's first cousin. Mike's mom is my mother's baby sister. Mike and I were born in the same room 2 days apart at New York Presbyterian Hospital. Then it was New York Hospital. Mike and I grew up together in the 80s and 90s and spent a lot of time with our family in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. There we created our own version of stoop ball, and every year Mike would kick my ass. Someday it's my dream for the sport to go pro, and I will get my revenge.
Need more Mike Delivers? Head over to Patreon.com or download the Patreon app and type in Mike Delivers. Get a full catalog of bonus podcasts like the one time Mike crashed his wife's 2007 Toyota RAV4, behind-the-scenes videos, and more food reviews. Go to Patreon and check it out now.
My name is Mike Biseglia. I'm 37 years old, and I use the Lawnmower 3.0. Use my promo code, Mike Delivers, all one word, and you can get 20% off plus free shipping on your own Lawnmower 3.0. What is the Lawnmower 3.0? It is an electric trimmer that cleans your ball hair. I recommend it, I use it, and it's helped my life tremendously. As a 37-year-old that's feeling bad about himself because he turned 37 and the age has turned a corner, the best thing I have going for me right now is the Lawnmower 3.0. Use my promo code, Mike Delivers, all one word, you get 20% off. You can even have mine. You can have my used Lawnmower 3.0.
Welcome inside Mike Delivers from his wife's 2017 Toyota RAV4. Here's your host, Mike Biseglia.
That's right. This is Mike Delivers, episode number 81. And I'm your host, Mike Biseglia. And I'm coming to you from my wife's office in Bloomfield, New Jersey. That's right. I've upgraded to the point where I'm now no longer sitting in my wife's closet. I'm in my wife's office. I've got a chair. I've got a chair that has a pillow on it. And this is quite comfortable. I'm enjoying the life of episode 81. Big timing it out here for the Mike Delivers podcast. You can find this podcast where all major pods are available. Of course, that includes Stitcher, iHeart, TuneIn, and Apple Podcasts. Please go ahead, if you're on Apple, give a 5-star rating, leave a comment. I'm closing in on 100 ratings. So just go over there, do it for me. I'd love to hear from you. It would mean a lot to me. I'd love to get to number 100. How about number 164 on the Apple Podcast charts for basketball podcasts in Canada? Can't make this shit up. So I got a notification, I got an email that my podcast has cracked the charts of the basketball, the Canadian basketball charts. 2 parts. I guess when I originally registered this podcast online, I probably clicked that one of the categories was basketball. I haven't really talked that much basketball on the podcast. I mean, I've dipped into it here and there, I guess, like my crossover episodes with Alex and my crossover episodes with Evan Roberts. We've done a little NBA, but for the most part, I've shied away from the NBA side of things here on Mike Delivers, and it really has just focused more on the delivery side, the Uber Eats side, and the stories, food reviews, and more associated with food, I would have to say. But if you remember way back when, all the way in 2019, this podcast started as basketball drives, and the word basketball, I'm sure, triggered a lot of people when they're searching for basketball podcasts. It was probably easier to find. Now it's Mike Delivers. So, but the name had to be changed because this podcast is all encompassing on everything that's food delivery, my life, and more than just drives and basketball. But I thought that was kind of cool, just cracking the rankings. You know, me and Joe Rogan up there in the Canadian, well, I guess he wouldn't be in basketball, but me and Joe Rogan up there in rankings in Canada. So my dad had the suggestion I should get a Toronto Raptor on the podcast. That's going to be difficult, but that would be cool for my brethrens out there in Canada to take care of my Canadian audience. Love you guys. You're the best. Big fan of Canada. You can check out the Patreon page of Mike Delivers. You heard that little fancy ad I had in the beginning there. You can find out how I crashed my wife's 2007 Toyota RAV4, the whole story. But more than anything, the Patreon page is now a full-blown podcast page, basically. There's 15 other podcasts on there, food reviews, video food reviews, and my favorite now, the blind food taste testing, where my wife is feeding me food and I have to guess what it is. Feel free to give me recommendations. You can't, however, give them to me, I guess. I shouldn't say give them to me. Give them to my wife. And the way she recommended we do this is through Instagram. You can actually send her a DM. So let me pull up what her account is, as I'm super organized. So if you want to message her, it's Dr. Biseglia, and just go over to her Instagram page, put a message in, and you can make a recommendation. And for those at home, that's Dr. DR, and then B as in boy, I, S as in Sam, Ceglia. Dr. Biseglia, go over there, send an IG message. Like, for example, if you want me to try raw eggs, don't suggest that. That sounds awful. But she would then put that in my mouth. I put her pantyhose across my eyes, and I try to guess what that is. So give it a shot. Let her send her a DM, and then you can check out the video that I do on the Instagram page. It's been fun. I think people will really enjoy that. I love my logo, and it wouldn't be there without the O'Brien Creative Group. They're the guys that made my fancy dancy logo, and they've done a great job with my brand identity. As you know, if you've heard me talk about this podcast, Mike Delivers is more than just a podcast about Uber Eats. It's really now its own little niche world. So Drew O'Brien and the O'Brien Creative Group has made that happen. If you want them to help like they've helped me, I've got information for them in my show notes. I highly recommend it. Even if you're just doing the logo portion, you should check that out. Very cool shit right there. Fun interview coming up here in this episode. It's with a man named Ricky Spears. And Ricky and I met via Instant Messenger. Holy shit, I'm going to date myself. We met on Twitter. His Twitter handle is Food Delivery Champ. It's actually at Food DLVRY Champ. And this man is basically, as I want to call him, an Uber Eats delivery driver genius. And he's got some awesome strategies and ideas that I think other Uber Eats and delivery drivers that listen to this podcast will really be curious to hear about, as it can help them make more money. And then on the other side of things, from the person that's just ordering food, I think you're going to like this. The orderer. I've always come up with this problem. I don't know. The customer. It's the customer. That's the word I'm looking for. You're a customer. Jeez. From the customer standpoint, I think you'll be interested in this, because you'll get to hear somebody that's really good at what they do and is trying to crack the code, crack the system on how they can make service better for you. My fear, though, after you hear Ricky and you hear this podcast, is every other schlub driver that you get food delivered from, you're going to think they're freaking morons and aren't good enough at their job. But Ricky's a good dude. He's got some good stories from the road, and he's got some strategies that, again, I think other delivery drivers will find fascinating, and the customer, it'll help them as well. Food stories from the road will be coming back shortly. That is my tease for everybody. The downloads for this continue to go skyrocket into the sky. That makes sense, because a rocket goes up. But downloads have been great, and there will be more stories from the road. I promise you that. They are coming. I've got some good shit lined up in the future, and we're going to have some fun on this podcast. It's crazy, man. Episode 82 comes out on Thursday. More Taco Bell. We'll be talking more Taco Bell. Let me put it that way, as my wife and I keep trying it. I fucking hate Taco Bell. It's been miserable. I've not been into this shit at all, but I'm doing it for the episodes and part of June Taco Bell review. On my Patreon page this past episode, I came up with this idea, and I'm going to start bringing it up with guests moving forward, and I want to just interact with people and have a fun game with this. So on the episode, we talked about, I got duped on something and whatever, it pissed me off, but segue, it brought me to what I want to tell you with this story. So my wife and I are then talking about the Olive Garden. And we got into details back and forth about that. You can hear on the Patreon page are my full feelings on the Olive Garden. But in the middle of the episode, I had this idea. So we brought up the menu for the Olive Garden. And the idea is, you look at the menu. This is hard-hitting shit right here. You look at the menu of the Olive Garden and you say, what's the one item on this menu that I would absolutely want to get? But more importantly, the item on the menu that I absolutely despise, would never order in a million years, and think is absolutely repulsive. So we had some fun with that, and there's just so many limitless possibilities here. Like, we could do the Olive Garden, we could do the Cheesecake Factory, we could do Red Lobster, we could do Cracker Barrel, Applebee's. We could go on and on with all these different chain restaurants and just find your worst nightmare item that you would pick on the menu. My wife likes the idea yum or yuck. I haven't quite polished it yet. I don't know if I'm into it yet, but that's on the table as a possibility. It was fun because on the Olive Garden menu is a make your own pasta, where you pick a pasta, you pick a sauce, and you pick like a protein you want with it, and you can make some absolutely ridiculously nasty shit. I mean, like mushroom sauces with shrimp scampi, with some gluten-free pasta. I mean, the items on there. And then there was an entree that was like a 5 cheese shell ravioli that I thought was just nasty. But maybe that's the item you love. I mean, that's what makes this idea so cool, is you could go bouncing back and forth. There's no right answer, although I feel like mine is right, and I bet you'll feel the same way. So we'll have some fun with that. And also, I want to know if you're listening to this podcast. DM me, tweet me, Mike Delivers Pod. Just shout out, say who you are. There's a lot of different people now, a lot of different drivers that I'm interacting with that are getting into this episode, that are getting into this podcast and these episodes. So let me know who you are. Shout out, just give me a shout out. I want to hear from you. That'd be super cool. So please do that to all the Mike Delivers listeners out there. Mike Delivers Pod on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook as well. You can reach me that way. All right, it's time now to chat with a food delivery champion. His name is Ricky Spears. He's in the Virginia Beach area. We met via Twitter, and he's got some tricks of the trade for delivery drivers. I'm excited for everybody to listen to my interview. Here it is with Ricky Spears. All right, it's the Mike Delivers podcast, and if you've listened to this podcast in the past, you know I enjoy not only being on the road, but I love talking to different delivery drivers across the country, in different parts of America, to get their feel for what it's like on the road, different stories from them, their background, and of course, what we're going through right now with this pandemic and COVID-19. It is an interesting time to be a delivery driver. So welcoming now into the Mike Delivers Pod is Ricky Spears. He is a Uber Eats driver, primary number one. He does a couple of other things that we'll talk about a little bit as well, and he is in the Virginia Beach area. Ricky and I met on Twitter. So, Ricky, thank you for coming on the Mike Delivers podcast. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me, Mike. I appreciate it. Nice
yeah, absolutely. We'll have some fun here. And what caught my attention right away and was your Twitter handle. It was @FoodDeliveryChamp. And, somebody that's a food delivery, I can't say I'm a champ. I would say I'm like a B+ delivery driver. I still have room to improve, but I'm not bad. So when I saw your handle @FoodDeliveryChamp, I was like, I want to follow you. I want to see all the tips that you have on your Twitter handle, and then I want to talk to you. So love the Twitter handle. Where did that idea come from, and how did that pop in your head that you should be I am @FoodDeliveryChamp?
Well, I have been delivering for about a year. And a couple months ago, I decided, I would like to write a book letting people know about, okay, these are the things I've learned. What is, if I was just getting into food delivery, what would I want to know? If I could have a coach who was riding along with me for the first week, as a coach, what would I be saying to the driver? And as a driver, what would what kind of questions would I be asking, and what would I want to know? And so I was kind of tossing around some ideas for the name of the book, and the idea of be a food delivery champ come into my head. And I said, okay, let me go with that. And so that's the history behind where the food delivery champ name come from. And so, yeah, I don't know that I'm a champ either, but I do my best.
No, I'm sure you do great. So then, and you and I were talking about talking off the air. You've been delivering now for about a year. Have you thought about a book then? Have you wrote down any notes, any tips? Like, is this in the process of being developed?
It's I'm in the process of writing it now. The first few chapters are already written, and I'm not sure if I'm going to seek an outside publisher or do self-publishing. but I feel really good about the book and where it's headed.
That is really cool. I mean, I can tell you from somebody that's now been doing it a year, but early on, I mean, the amount of stress and anxiety, and there's still some now. I mean, it's just like any other job. You're not just showing up. There's moments where some parts are easier, some parts are tough, some parts are tougher. I think a book is a great idea, and I can be like, I would buy it in a second. I'd love to read it. I think it's a fantastic idea. What kind of advice or tips do you have in there in the early stages, if you don't mind sharing?
Well, I guess the big thing is my philosophy, and my philosophy with food delivery is work better, work smarter, work faster,
Mm,
and it's in that order. I think a lot of people. Um, I'm 53, so coming from the 80s, and the first food delivery that I was really aware of was Domino's, and it was, if it's not there in 30 minutes, it's free.
right.
And I think the idea of you've got to be super fast has persisted in the food delivery industry. And I think maybe if you're delivering for a single restaurant, that's probably still the case.
Yeah.
But I think that um, when you're delivering, running your own business and delivering for an app and multiple restaurants, that I think that the quality of service that you provide is the key.
Mm,
And I think that's the biggest key to earning more money and being happier doing the job as well. At least was that's true for me. And and then the second, so that takes care of work better,
right.
working better than everyone else. The next part is working smarter. Working smarter has to do with how you run the business part of your business. And I think a lot of drivers, okay, I'm just going to deliver, and they really miss out on the business side. And even if it's just tax write-offs and things like that, there's a lot that they miss out on that really, in the end, contributes to your income.
Right.
And then of course the last part is working faster. Um, I think if there's one tip that I see that I would give to any driver, um, uh, the first tip is always, always, always use a hot bag.
Mm.
And the number of times that I go to pick up and I see people no hot bag, and my thought is, do you not want tips? What's
Right.
uh, and I know with
Totally.
Uber Eats, they don't provide a hot bag like
They don't.
DoorDash and Grubhub and Postmates does. And I don't like the hot bags that DoorDash and Postmates provide. They're better than nothing, but they don't do a great job.
Right.
But I would say, yeah, get a good quality hot bag, and you don't have to spend a ton on it, but something that's thicker than that. Personally, I love the cold bags. I think they call them uh, cool shoppers or cool shopping bags or something like that at Sam's Club.
Right.
They're about $8, and you can put a really big bag of food in there. You can lay them on their side, and you can put most pizzas in there up to a large
Yeah.
size. And
Hmm.
yeah, they're just great hot bags. So yeah, my
You know,
number one tip: always, always, always use a hot bag.
I know you referenced this before too, which I think is fascinating too. So you worked in the tech industry a lot. You've done some great things in your career before you got into even doing some of this, the Uber Eats in the past year. What has the transition been like on your end of things, coming from a different type of job into what you're doing now, and having that mentality of, I want to hack the system and try to make the most money that I can?
Yeah, I think from that perspective, it's not. From that perspective, it hasn't been that big of a leap. The first thing is that those first few weeks and just kind of learning the ins and outs of using the apps and dropping off, and then it becomes okay. What happens if I change this one thing?
Mm,
And I think a big part of working smarter is uh, tracking your deliveries. And um, so, where am I picking up? Where am I dropping off? How big was the tip? What did I do different for this one? For a while, I was tracking demographics of
mm.
the houses that I would drop off at,
Oh wow.
um, and just a variety of demographic things about, a lot of it was assumptions. that I would make. Hey, are they in an apartment or townhouse or
Right.
and yeah, I even did race, and from what I could tell, and are they wealthy people or not? Probably not very wealthy.
Mm-hmm.
And between all I stopped tracking demographics for two reasons. One is I don't have much control over it as a driver.
Right.
I pick up the food, and especially with Uber Eats, when I first got into it, had no idea where you were delivering to
Yeah.
until you click, yep, it's picked up and in my car. And
That's
uh,
crazy. That's crazy now thinking back on it. Sorry to interrupt you, Ricky, but it's crazy thinking back on it. There was a time where you didn't know where you were going initially. It just said an area, and then you were like, surprise, I'm at this restaurant. That's wacky to think. We can talk about that in a minute, but continue. Yeah, you got me sparking thinking about this. It's wild.
uh, yeah, and it wasn't that long ago. I mean,
I
we're talking a
know.
few months, and
Right.
um, so one, I realized I don't have any control over this, and two, I realized that I could find no statistical significant difference between how rich people tip, poor people tip, between how
Mm,
people of different races tip, between people in townhouses or apartments or a house. I couldn't find it. I think as a driver, we focus on, um, okay, I delivered to this $1 million, $2 million house, and I
yeah.
didn't get a tip, or they tipped me $1.
Right.
And then we deliver to a trailer park, and man, the guy gave me a 20.
Yep.
And those are outliers, and we focus on those. But if you look
Mm-hmm.
at, if I think if most people would put those on a spreadsheet and throw out the outliers, you're going to find out that people are people, and that we all average out roughly the same. Now,
Mm.
that's my experience. I would encourage other drivers to do the exact same thing in their own markets. That may be different in other areas, but for me in this area, I can find no significant statistical difference.
That's really, really fascinating. And as a driver myself, you bring up those points, and I'm thinking back to, dropping something off and then guessing in your head what the tip will be. What do you think then of, and I'll, tell this to the listener. So when you do an Uber Eats delivery, for an example, and let's say somebody bought a dinner and the order came out to be $50, Uber Eats will then say, okay, we have a default tip, 10%, 15%, 20%. And I always got annoyed by this because they're tipping based on the size of the meal and not based on the service or not based on the distance that you had to drive, where you could be taking something 40 minutes. That's an exaggeration, maybe a little less, like 20, 25 minutes, and it's an
Mhm.
$8 order. And then they give you a 15% tip and it's $1.30, even though it was a much more difficult drive. What do you think about the way how Uber Eats has it set up to default the tip based on the order size and value?
Well, I think you bring up a good point there. Another one of my tips is that if you are a delivery driver for a platform, is that the delivery you need to be a customer of that platform. So you need to be familiar with the end user experience.
Mm,
And I think it seems, if I remember correctly, it was well, the start of the COVID-19.
right.
Uber made a shift from offering two for $6 or a custom amount as your default tip. And one of the reasons that I really like Uber Eats is because they make it super easy for the customer to go back and do a
Mm,
tip after the delivery.
got it. Yeah.
And I think DoorDash, they tip before the delivery. Grubhub, they tip before the delivery. And with Grubhub, the last time I used it anyway, you could see what the tip was. Um, with DoorDash, it's mixed in, and with Postmates, it's entirely afterward, after the delivery. So uh, I think with those two, I feel like I have the best opportunity to earn a big tip based on the quality of service that I provide. So, so I'm focused on quality of service. I'm trying to make sure that I don't get too far away from your question and answer your question. The uh, from a customer perspective, uh, I feel like I've always been a pretty generous tipper. Usually if I was, ordering pizza, it was $5, and um, I think, most people were probably doing 2 or 3. I could be wrong, but that seems to be kind of what
Probably
I
right.
what I heard.
Yeah.
And then in a restaurant, it's 15 or 20%, and then it kind of goes up or down depending on, did I have to ask for tea, tea refill? I'm in the South,
Right.
so or other things, and or do you anticipated all my needs? Okay, this might go up to 30. So it's really about quality of service more so than the price of the meal, or how far the driver is driving or
Right.
something. And I think, you know, for me as a customer, the biggest way uh, to either not earn a tip or for me to start deducting from what your tip would be is to not use a hot bag. Don't bring me
Mm.
cold food.
No, bingo. What was the best tip you ever got?
The best one was $50,
Wow.
and that was just a few weeks ago, and honestly, I don't remember where that one came from, what I was delivering or anything. Before that, for a long time, my biggest tip was 45, and that was I remember that one specifically. That was a Boston Market order, and
Hmm.
it was two big bags of food, and I delivered it to probably $1.5 million, $2 million house.
Wow.
And the lady walked out, and she greeted me by name, and she was really thankful that I had everything in hot bags and all, and I got the tip. That was on Postmates, and honestly, I got it. I'm like, oh, did she mean to do 450? And
Right.
she
Exactly.
missed a decimal, and I'm like, and then I'm like, I'd really like to send her a thank you card. This is nice. This is a
Yeah.
$45 tip, and then I'm like, okay, I can't communicate with customers after the delivery in any way because that's a violation of the driver contract,
Right.
and it could be a little creepy as well.
Right.
Demographically, one of the things I was thinking about, the one thing that I did notice that there was some significant statistical difference. In My wife does this as too, some, not as much as I do, but she does it some, and I've noticed that men tend to tip her a little more, women tend to tip
Hmm.
me a little more, and so
Interesting.
there is a slight demographic difference there, but you have no idea who's going to be the one that's standing at the door, regardless of what the name is on the order.
Right. 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 So your wife then does deliveries as well?
Yes, and
Gotcha.
more often than not, we work as a team. So she hasn't been going out since the COVID-19
Okay.
thing, but I've been the only one going out. But she will drive, and most of the time, and I will go in and pick up at the restaurants, and then I will take it up to the customer, and so that really frees me up to just kind of focus on the experience when she's doing the driving part, um, and I can do the communication with the customer and everything.
Right.
But then, she has her account on the apps too, and we'll switch off. Um, I was sparked. You were talking about um, the customer feeling the heat from the hot bag. One of the things that she
Yeah.
does differently than I do is she opens up the hot bag and asks the customer to get it out. So when they put their
Ooh.
hands in the hot bag, they feel the heat
That's a
of
good
whatever's in
idea.
there. Now, yeah,
I
that was
like that.
genius, I thought. Yeah.
That's a great move. Oh, I like that a lot. Now, how about I said, all right, the biggest tip you got, and to be perfectly honest, like I get annoyed, and you do it enough, it's going to happen. It's just some people aren't going to tip. But
Yeah.
when you know you did everything right, you did a good job, the food was there on time, you did everything you could get to get to the house or the apartment. It wasn't the easiest drive. Sometimes you got to go through different apartment complexes. There's dogs chasing you. That may be a stretch, but you know where I'm going. When
Yeah.
somebody doesn't tip you after you did everything you could, is there a frustration level, or are you at the point where you're like, you know what? I understand this is part of the game. There's going to be times where people don't tip.
Yeah. At this point, I just I understand it. It still bothers me a little bit, but it's at this point, I think it's more just as I'm amazed at the person that might tip me $30, $40. I am probably equally amazed at the
Totally.
person who doesn't tip at all.
Totally.
I
Totally
know,
agree.
last night it was there was a storm in Virginia Beach. It was raining. I had a really long wait at a pizza place to pick up, um, and I messaged the customer and before I got to the restaurant and said, "Hey, you want me to pick up any Parmesan cheese for you, red pepper flakes,
Mm,
silverware?"
right.
And I kind of have some messages that I have stored in my clipboard in my phone. So
Smart.
they're just a couple taps to send these messages. And so when I'm picking up pizza, I sent her the default message, and she come back and said, "Yes, all the above." I'm like, "Okay,
Mm.
great, you got it." And then I get there and they're not
Ugh.
finished with their order, so I send her a message that says, "Hey, they're still working on your order. I should have it shortly." And then I'm waiting longer, and I send her a message and it says, "Hey, still waiting." Because I like for the customer, I think it's important that you ask the customer, "What's the extra shit I can do for you?"
Totally.
And number two, "Here's all the extra shit I did for you."
Bingo.
And I think those two things are, especially with the COVID-19 and the contactless delivery. Um, so so I'm letting her know I'm still waiting, and then I get the food, get it set up in my hot bags and in my car, and I get a call from the restaurant. I haven't pulled off yet, thankfully, but I get a call from the restaurant, and the restaurant says, "We accidentally gave you the wrong bag of food."
Oh.
And I'm like, "Okay." And they said, "Just come in and get the new bag. You can keep the bag we gave you." I'm like, "Oh, well, that's sweet." And
So you got
so
extra food? Is there
yeah, I
extra
got
food
extra
is what you're
food.
saying?
Yeah,
Oh
yeah.
wow. I've never
And so
wow,
that was mine.
that's nuts.
And that's always great when that sort of thing happens. But so I get um, so go in, get the right stuff. And I had messaged her before. I said, uh, I said, "Oops, they gave me the wrong bag. They called me. I just switched that out." Once again, I wanted her to know I'm doing some extra stuff for you.
Right.
And then um, so then I go to she's at a hotel, and she doesn't even respond to me when I go up. And she meets me in the lobby, and there's two women standing there that a security guard has just told me that they're waiting for the Uber Eats delivery. And
Yeah.
I said, "Hey, which one of you is Brittany?" And they just look at me. And I'm like, one of you is Brittany, and one of them gives the slightest head nod. I'm like, "Okay, all right, well, here's your food." And then I'm kind of
Right.
explaining to them what happened. And this is probably about $80 worth of Italian food.
Okay.
And um, and then nothing. And I'm like, "Okay, I did a lot of extra stuff for you, but it happens." So, and then there's some that I feel like, okay, this is just a run of the mill delivery and it's a really great tip. So I just, at this
Right.
point, I'm aware of it, but it kind of averages
Mhm.
out.
Yeah, no, you're right. It does average out. It still is frustrating though when you feel like you did all the extra things, you went above and beyond, and there is no tip. It's definitely changed. I always tipped, but it's definitely changed my view when I'm going to tip somebody. If I notice the little details, I do want to make sure that I can take care of them and help them out because they did do such a an extraordinary job to help me out. So I do notice things like that, but it is crazy when it's like you did all this stuff and you couldn't help me. I'm like, wow, what is going on? Like, why would you do that? Now I know that your primary is Uber Eats, but you have other services that you use. Are you using Uber Eats and a DoorDash and a Postmates all at the same time? And you're kind of going in and out of different apps, or how are you organizing that? And how are you handling that? So, like to me, that seems like it could get a little overwhelming and get a little tricky. How are you using the different apps at the same time or at different times?
It can be. If I'm in I typically deliver between 6 p.m. at night and 2 in the morning,
Mm,
um, Wednesday through Sunday, and um, take Mondays and Tuesdays off because they're the two slowest days.
right.
So, but back before then, like during the afternoons, let's say between 2 and 5, it's kind of dead. So I would have all three or four apps on at one time
Mm,
because, and sometimes I'd still be waiting for a delivery from one of them. Um, And then, when I would get a delivery that I wanted to accept and I would accept it, then I would go offline with the others.
Gotcha.
And so I'm usually only online with multiple apps waiting for deliveries. Once I am on a delivery, then I go offline with the
Right.
others.
No, that makes a lot of sense. I know a lot of people have done that, and I personally have not. I've only stuck to Uber Eats when I've done them, so I've not shifted back and forth. But I think it's interesting, and obviously, I know a good way for people to make some money and to use it wisely. Your first delivery. So we're going about a year now. First delivery. I'll tell you a little quickly about my first delivery. My
Yeah.
first delivery, Ricky, is the only time I got a free item. So in my
Oh,
head, after I did the first delivery, I'm like, so I did a delivery to IHOP. I'll tell you this story real quick. I did a delivery
mhm.
to IHOP, and it was a strawberry pancake something, and they forgot the strawberry compote. So first of all, I'm so nervous. I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I don't know how the app works. I don't know which way to swipe. I don't know how this works. So I finally figured it out. I had to wait a couple minutes. They gave me the food. I get in the car and off I go. And I get a phone call, comes in 30, 40 seconds later, and it's not a number I have in my phone. So I'm like, this probably has something to do with Uber Eats or it's a spam call, but I'm going to
Mhm.
take it because I want to make sure. I don't know. And it's IHOP calling me back and saying, we forgot the strawberry compote for the pancakes. Come on back. So I'm like, okay, drive back, get there. And they said, for the inconvenience, I want to give you, we're sorry that we had to make you come back. Here is some sort of drink. It was like a strawberry lemonade drink. This is on the house for you. You can enjoy. I was like, oh,
Nice.
first delivery, free drink. This must happen all the time. Hasn't happened since. So, and I gave it to the customer for free. And I said, oh, this is on the house for my IHOP. Because I was like, I don't really care. Let me see if I can
Yeah.
get some tip out of it.
Yeah.
But that was my first delivery. So it hasn't happened since, but I like to share that story. So your first delivery, what happened?
It was a disaster from top to bottom, and it mirrored yours somewhat. So it was about 5 o'clock when this is a DoorDash order. It was about 5 o'clock on a Friday afternoon when I went online. It was raining, and um, I get this order from uh, an Irish restaurant, and well, let me say Irish themed restaurant, kind of an
Okay.
upscale, like
Okay.
Outback is an Australian, but it's Australian themed.
Right.
So this is
Okay.
an
That makes
Irish
sense.
themed upscale restaurant. And so I go in and I pick up the food. I think I had a little bit of a wait for it. Um, and then I head off to the customer's house. And what probably would have normally been um, about a 10-minute delivery, uh, I got about 40 minutes down the road because traffic was so bad and the rain and
Oh,
everything. And I was almost to the customer's house. And like you, I get a call on my phone. I'm like, wow, who's this calling?
yeah.
And it must have something to do with the order. Probably the customer wanting to know where their food is. And I answered, and it's the restaurant. Um, you picked up a grilled chicken salad, and actually, you just picked up the salad. We forgot to give you the grilled chicken.
First one. Bummer.
Yes. So I'm like, okay.
That
So I
sucks.
head back to the restaurant and pick up the grilled chicken, and then go to the customer. And so what would have been like a 10-minute delivery, maybe 15, ended up about an hour and a half. And
Oh,
and and I think my wife was driving then, and so I was doing the other stuff. It could have been vice versa, but I was like, I don't know if this is sustainable. Uh, um,
I feel you. I
I
feel
don't
you.
remember what we made. I don't know what it was. Maybe it's like $5-6 for this
Right.
hour and a
Like,
half work, and I'm like,
no, right. This is
this,
ridiculous.
yeah, this isn't good. And it's okay.
Uh,
Let's. I'm gonna stick with this, and then it's okay. This is better, and then it becomes all right. This is kind of
yeah.
enjoyable. How can I
Mm,
hack it?
totally. So you mentioned how can I hack it? So will now as more experience I has become, and I will say now too, as Uber Eats has advanced, like before when Uber Eats didn't tell you the restaurant you were going to, that changes everything in trying to pick up the order. But when it says the restaurant you're going to, if you're experienced in your area, you know, all right, this place generally is on time. The food's ready. I want to pick up the food from here, easy parking, etc. And it's a good launch pad into going to another restaurant. Or, oh no, don't want to go there. The food's never ready on time. I know I'm going to go in there and wait 20 minutes. So when you say hack it, this is a very broad term and it could have a bazillion answers. So I understand this is a difficult question to ask in that sense. But when you say hack it, what are some of the ideas that you have on a more macro scale that come to your mind?
Oh, ideas on a macro scale.
Or you could say, don't even listen to that. How do you hack the system? Just tell me, how do you hack it? Because honestly, I want to make more money. Tell me how to do it.
Yeah, I think, a lot of the things that I've already shared, it's things like, I used to, when I would drop off, I would tell the customer, here's everything I did. And now with contactless delivery, I've had to change a lot of the stuff that I would do face to face that I now have to do in messages.
Yes.
And I've realized that with Uber Eats, it seems to me that about 80% of customers, if I send a message in the app, I don't get any response back. If I ask them a question, I don't get any response back. So I don't think they even see it. And so I have started, I place a call to the customer, and then I copy the phone number from the call. That is the proxy number. And then I paste that into my SMS app for messaging. And then I send the message to the customer. And the first one is just a message that says, hi, this is Ricky. I'm your Uber Eats driver. And part of hacking it is I've tried different types of messages.
Interesting.
So for one of them, I had I used the hand wave emoji icon after hide. And last week, I spent a week and I had created some animated GIFs. And so the first animated GIF was one of me waving. Yes. And so I sent them the animated GIFs. And yes, I was wearing my face mask. And the idea there is, let's make sure they know I'm a person.
Yes.
And they would, and then, the second message is either I'm headed to the restaurant to pick up your food, or it's what else extra can I do for you? And here's some ideas. And,
do you find, sorry to interrupt you, Ricky, do you find that people will respond to that or are into answering that?
Yes. Even if it's yes or no, 9 times out of 10, I will get a response from that. So they are responding to the text messages, definitely. And, if I'm picking up at McDonald's, it's, would you like me to pick up any extra sauces, ketchup, salt,
right,
or anything else? If I'm picking up at Taco Bell, it's, would you like any extra sauces or napkins? If I'm picking up Chinese, it's, would you like any extra sauces, chopsticks, or silverware? And I've already mentioned picking up pizza. Would you like some red pepper flakes or Parmesan cheese? And if I'm picking up at Five Guys, would you like me to pick up some malt vinegar for your fries or some peanuts?
Right.
And but yeah, they are responsive to that.
So then you have almost different templates for. Yeah, obviously, there's restaurants you're going to go to that might not, work with what you have, but you'll have templates that are ready for a Five Guys at McDonald's that are conducive to the type of order they're picking up, that are just basically in your notes on your phone, ready to go.
Yeah, yes. And the McDonald's one, I can use that at any fast food restaurant.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Now that's cool. I've done a little bit of that, but not to the details that you're going in. And it's curious too. You're saying like you've tried different emojis or different messages. Obviously this is something with COVID-19 that's changed everything. Like I know from my end, I was always trying to figure out like this little way of small talking without being phony, but still being sincere. Like if I found a restaurant I picked up I'd never been to say something like, oh man, I really got to try this place. It looks great. Or, going to, oh, I've been to this pickup. I've been here 3 or 4 times today. But, that you kind of feel out the situation. Like, does this person want to engage or not? But with COVID-19, those kind of messaging can't happen. It's more, here's the food, you take a photo of it, and you can't do any of that. So pre-COVID-19, what were those exchanges like with the conversations you had with people when you were dropping off the food?
Well, just before COVID-19, I started sending the messages about picking up extra stuff, but the reason I started sending the messages about that is because I was just picking up the extra stuff, and so I would drop off, and it's like, oh, I wanted to make sure you had the a complete Five Guys experience. So I picked up some malt vinegar for your fries, and I picked up some peanuts. You've got to provide your own classic rock, but enjoy your dinner. And you've only got 10 seconds maybe to connect with them when you drop off, if it's face to face. And so it was just being friendly, and also saying, hey, I asked the restaurant to separate your salad and cheesecake into one bag so I could keep it cold. And but so I think you were asking about the in-person exchanges.
Sure.
Yeah. So they're brief, and but usually pretty positive. And occasionally you get someone that's just want to, okay, just give me my food and get off my
Right.
lawn, and it happens.
Yeah.
But yeah, by and large, most of them are very friendly exchanges, and so yeah. Now I'm trying to transition those over to text, and haven't always found ways to do that, but trying to.
Yeah, no, it's tricky, challenging times. And as we're going through this pandemic as delivery drivers, you're learning ways to adapt, ways to change as everything has changed on it. How have you found it? And you're in the Virginia Beach area during this pandemic with picking up at restaurants, parking, traffic. Has it lightened up a lot for you, or at least in the previous months, with a lot less people out and about on the road and in restaurants?
Yeah. Driving is great, and that's another thing. When you're 6 p.m. to 2 a.m., there's already not as much traffic on the road, and so now it's oh man, I don't have to go around the block. I can just back up because there's no one else on the road.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a lot better. Most restaurants have made significant improvements to their pickup experience. I think most of them still don't treat drivers the same way that they would treat a customer, although we are the customer's proxy from my perspective. And so I feel like we should be treated the same.
Agreed.
But we're often not. And but I remember the first week of COVID-19, I was picking up at a Chipotle, and I went in, and they're like, I was standing at it, told them, hey, I'm picking up for so and so, and I'm standing there in the middle of the restaurant, making sure there's no one else. I'm a long ways away from everyone else. They have customers that's lined up ordering their burritos or what have you, and it's, oh no, you've got to wait outside. And I laughed out loud. I said, "You're serious?" I said, "You're joking, right?" And they said, "No, I'm serious. You got to wait outside." I'm like, it's raining, and like, well, you got to wait outside. So they have 2 big umbrellas outside, and I go outside, and I'm like, okay, so you can have 2 drivers out here that's 6 feet apart, but so and yeah, so they've improved that. I didn't pick up at that Chipotle for a long time after that, but
Right.
I have since, and most restaurants have improved and adapted. And I'm hoping that a lot of that will stay in place as things start to open back up, but I don't know that it will.
Yeah, that's a good point. Something interesting. I wonder how, when things get back to a little more normalcy as life continues, and we're talking like 3, 4, 5, 6 a year, 6 months a year down the road, I wonder if these restaurants will take, for delivery purposes, COVID-19 procedures and then sort of morph them with old times, because it's definitely different. So it'll be curious to see how that all comes together when we get back to normalcy. I don't, Ricky, I don't know. Maybe, I guess maybe only time will tell on that.
Yeah, I hope they don't forget what they've learned. Delivery is a big part of their business, and their business models have to to uh, adapt to the way that Americans want to dine.
Yeah, it's expedited the process too, and probably like restaurants that never would be on Uber Eats or other platforms now said we have to. We have no choice. We have to stay in business. We have to do this. And played back to something you said before. I've gone to a restaurant before to pick up dinner for myself, and I've gone as an Uber Eats driver, and I saw the same guy, and I'll never forget. He was so nice to me as a customer and could not be a bigger jerk to me as an Uber Eats driver. And I'm like, dude, I saw you like 8 days ago. You were so nice to me. And now I'm coming in here, and because I'm showing my phone saying I'm picking up for Jackie R, like you're going to treat me like an ass. Like what happened there? So that's true. That does happen. And it's annoying.
Absolutely.
It's funny you say that. Well, Ricky, I appreciate your time. You've given me a lot of it here. So do you have a name for your book yet as we wrap things up here on Mike Delivers? Do you have something you've started with a title?
Yeah, it is Be a Food Delivery Champ.
Well, I am dying to see how this turns out and curious. And if you need help with like any comments, I'm here to help. I'm here to do it. Like I'm all about that, man. I love that.
Oh, thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Yeah, very cool. Because I mean, and you said when we started this, or we talked about this off air, it's a bit of a fraternity with the different delivery drivers. And I think it's important for everybody to share their stories, share their experiences. Because just for me personally, you're coming on my podcast, but I felt in the last 40 minutes, I've learned and gained a lot of valuable information just talking to you, and you're sharing some of your skills. And I can tell you, like, that one time when I was at IHOP and I was doing that first delivery, I would love to have had somebody that could get in my ear and talk to me and help me with that experience. Obviously I had to learn the hard way and I got better at it, but it'd be so great to have that kind of information. That's incredible.
Yeah, I agree. So you kind of know beforehand that these are the kinds of things that you might encounter. Don't lose hope over it.
Any jerk customers? Anything bad? Like if not, you don't have to lie. You don't have to embellish. But like anything you're like, oh my god, that person is miserable.
I remember I was picking up at a Five Guys, and I had accepted 2 orders, and I was waiting on the other order, and I told him that I said I'm waiting on another order. But I should have it shortly and I'll be on my way. And he responded back and he said, "Great, late delivery and cold food." and I replied back and said, "No, sir, your food is in a very high quality hot bag." And I said, "I'm going to go ahead and cancel the other delivery and bring your food to you." And so I canceled the other order, and I delivered his food to him. And yes, he was an old get off my lawn kind of guy. But I think I ended up with like a $5-6 tip or something from that.
Okay.
One. So in the end, he was happy, but they are few and far between. Delivered a 6-pack of beer to another get off my lawn kind of guy from Postmates months ago, and they happen, but they're rare, thankfully. But most people are extremely friendly, and those are the outliers. People like that. Have you encountered a lot of those?
I have not. No, for the most part, it's been, I've seen some weird stuff. Like the first story I ever told on this podcast, guy came out as underwear only. I was like, that was a little jarring. I was like surprised that he would be that comfortable. More just, just little things here and there. Like, let me ask you this, because I've found this to be interesting. When a food order is not ready and they say it's gonna, you got to wait for it. There's a timeline. If the food is going to be 30 minutes, it's not worth your time to wait. It's better to just cancel the order and move on to the next delivery. You're going to make more money going to another place as opposed to waiting in a restaurant for X amount of time.
Yes.
When somebody says 5 minutes, is it really 5 minutes?
That's the big question, because sometimes they give me sometimes I get the delivery driver 5 minutes, which means it might be 10 or 15.
Yeah.
And sometimes I get the customer 5 minutes, which means they're boxing it up right now, and it's the under promise, over deliver.
Yeah.
And it goes the opposite way as a driver. So I never know which one of those I'm getting. But I will usually stick around because I'm thinking, okay, not only do I have to get another order, but it's another order that I believe is acceptable. And then I'm going to have to drive to that restaurant. And, is that going to be one that is 5 miles away, or it's going to be one that's a half mile away? And so that, and actually that would probably be a good time to open up another app. So while you're there at the restaurant, and if you do get something that's super good, then you can accept it and you can say hasta la vista to this one.
Exactly.
Well,
You know what I've noticed that's funny is the 5 minute. I found the guy that says, 5 minutes is kind of average. I find the guy that goes, it's going to be 4 minutes, knowing that like if he says it's 4 minutes, that's his way of saying this is really, when you say 5 minutes, it's generic to be, it could really be anything. But if I tell you it's going to be 4 minutes, you got to take my word for it. Meanwhile, 4 minutes turns into 13 and he was full of shit. So, but I found the guy that says it's 4 minutes, almost as if 4 minutes shows you how sincere I am about the time, because I'm not at the generic 5.
Yeah. That's smart.
Yeah, no.
Smart to make that connection.
Next, if you make that note, DM me on Twitter. All right. So a couple last things. First off, what is your, I know I mentioned it before, but your Twitter handle for people and for other delivery drivers that want to find you on Twitter?
Okay. It's Food Delivery Champ, and the delivery is spelled DLVRY. The whole word delivery was too long for them. So
Gotcha.
Food, FOOD, DLVRY, CHAMP.
Awesome. All right, cool. And I really, really enjoyed this conversation, Ricky. We're definitely going to have to do it again. All right, the two last questions I ask everybody that comes on the Mike Delivers podcast. Number one, what's the best food item that you personally ate in the last 7 days?
In the last 7 days?
From right now when we're talking.
Okay. It was actually Reese's peanut butter ice cream from Ben & Jerry's.
I can't go wrong with that.
Other than that, this has been a boring food week.
And then bonus question jumping in my brain. I'll do this sometimes. You ever steal anybody's food on the road?
Never have. Not once.
Thank you. Good. Okay. You're keeping the integrity of the job. And
yes,
then
I can't understand people who do that.
And then it's disgusting. It's bizarre. And then the closest I thought about, I've never done it, but the one time where I was like, it's possible to pull it off, was I picked up dinner for somebody and they got a side of chips and salsa, and the chips were in like a brown paper bag that was open. And I was like, I could probably, now saying this out loud after like during COVID, it's like, what is wrong with you? This is months ago. Okay. Sticking your hand in a bag and taking the chip, I could have gotten away with it. Nobody knows, like, is there 56 chips in the bag or 55? Nobody knows. But I've never done it myself. So then finally, last question I have for you, Ricky. 6 months from now, you're getting married again. You're getting married and you're sending out your wedding invitation. Am I getting invited to your wedding? You can be honest.
Sure. I've enjoyed the conversation. Yeah, I think it'd be fun to have you there.
All right, cool. I'll do some deliveries too. I'm game to, like, if you guys need something helped out, I'll go on the road. I'll do some food deliveries. I'll do it for you. I don't mind. All
right, that sounds great.
All right, Ricky. Thank you so much for coming on the Mike Delivers podcast. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. I've really enjoyed it. It's been a fun time.
Appreciate the time on the podcast, Ricky. I think your book idea is tremendous. I think a lot of people would be interested. I really mean that. I think there's delivery drivers out there. I'd read that shit. I'd pick it up and I go, I need to learn what to do. I need to have an idea of how this works. I'm telling you, man, as things have changed in the world of the pandemic and as delivery drivers and delivery has become more mainstream and more people are doing it, there is a market out there for that stuff. So I think people would be highly invested and highly interested in reading the content you have. So thank you, Ricky, for hopping on this podcast, episode number 81. I've mentioned this before, that this podcast is now part of a bigger platform. It's on theprosclub.com. And the Pros Club is a podcast network that I co-created. And while I've got your attention here on the Mike Delivers podcast, check out theprosclub.com. There's a bunch of other different interesting podcasts that are different than this one. And that's what makes it all cool is you go to the Pros Club and you're not just getting everything about food and food delivery. It's a whole different niche of podcasts. There's Outside the Box with Mike and Leon, which is just a potpourri of what's going on in the world. Bad Weather Fans, that is more basketball related and talk about net-Nick rivalry and everything going on in the world. And then there is Real Talk Basketball with Rex Walters, former NBA guard. He interviews different coaches in the college and the NBA circles. So you get kind of the behind-the-scenes look at what goes on in coaching at the highest level. So I think everybody will get a kick out of that, and it's a really good listen. And there's some big-time names on there like Stan Van Gundy, Eric Musselman, and I know an episode with former Nets forward Jason Williams will be coming out shortly on that as well. Episode 82 with my wife. We're doing a little Taco Bell food review time. I hate it. I despise it. But that episode drops on Thursday as we get more into the Taco Bell world, which is just like, I've learned so much already about Taco Bell in just the last 2 weeks. Shit I did not know in my whole life. And I've learned more in 2 weeks about Taco Bell than I thought I ever would. I'm learning it's its own different world in itself with items and with different items on the menu and different lingo for ordering shit. It is really a bizarre fast food chain that's, from trying the food, I don't think is very good, but obviously people love it. So they've done something right. So another episode of Taco Bell food review, all straight tacos next time. That comes out on Thursday. All the proper shout outs. Thank you to Ricky Spears for coming on the podcast, the food delivery champ, sharing his stories. Thank you to The Beautiful Noise. They are the soundtrack to this podcast and quite simply would not be the same without them. I hear that song. Do 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 do. Do 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 do. Do 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 do. Do 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 do. Okay, you hear it. You don't need to hear me sing it. But thank you again to everybody. This has been episode 81. We'll see you next time for episode 82. Moving to the country, I'm gonna eat a lot of peaches. Moving to the country, I'm gonna eat me a lot of peaches. Moving to the country, I'm gonna eat me a lot of peaches. Moving to the country, I'm gonna eat a lot of peaches. Peaches come from a can, they were put there by a man in a factory downtown. If I had my little way, I eat peaches every day. So sucking bulges in the shade. Moving to the country, I'm gonna eat a lot of peaches. Moving to the country, I'm gonna eat a lot of peaches. Moving to the country, I'm gonna eat a lot of peaches. One more. Moving to the country, I'm gonna eat a lot of peaches. I took a little nap where the roots all twist, squishing a rotten peach in my fist. I've never gotten to this far in the song, dream to be a woman. I poked my finger down and whoa, a little room for an ant to hide. There's candy in my hand, a can or pie. Peaches. Peaches, 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 peaches.